She wasn't breaking the law. She wasn't causing trouble. She was simply existing. Walking down a street she had every right to call her own. But in a matter of moments, the ordinary turned into the unthinkable. Eyes followed her, words cut into her, and a silence from bystanders spoke louder than any shout. This wasn't just about one encounter. It was about a system that decides who belongs and who doesn't. What happened next will leave you questioning. How safe is it to simply be yourself? For Marcus, evenings were usually the calmest part of his day. He worked long shifts at a local warehouse, and by the time he clocked out, the streets were quiet, almost peaceful. Walking home became his small ritual, a chance to breathe, to clear his head, to think about tomorrow. He knew the neighborhood well, the cracked sidewalks, the corner store with its faded sign, the old houses that leaned into each other as if holding secrets. Marcus wasn't extraordinary in the eyes of the world, but he carried himself with quiet determination. He was the kind of man who kept to himself, worked hard, and dreamed of better days for his younger siblings. People who knew him described him as dependable, someone you could trust. That night felt no different, at least at first. He slung his bag over his shoulder, adjusted his headphones, and stepped into the familiar rhythm of his walk. But subtle details hinted at something off. A car idled longer than usual at a stop sign. A pair of voices hushed as he passed. The street, once familiar, suddenly felt heavier, as if the air itself was waiting for something. Marcus didn't notice. Not yet. For him, it was just another walk home. But what lay ahead would unravel that sense of normalcy and confront him with a reality no one should ever have to endure. At first, Marcus thought nothing of it. The low hum of the car creeping along the curb, the faint flicker of headlights brushing across his shadow. But the longer it lingered, the harder it became to ignore. His footsteps quickened, not into a sprint, but into something sharper, more alert. The world around him suddenly felt louder, the crunch of gravel under his shoes, the faint rattle of loose chains on a fence, the thud of his heart in his chest. Then, it happened. The car rolled to a stop beside him. The window slid down, slow and deliberate, revealing two men inside, their eyes locked on him, their expressions unreadable but heavy with intent. Marcus tugged his headphones off, trying to stay calm, but the silence between them was thicker than words. One of them finally spoke, his tone clipped, accusatory. "What are you doing here?" It wasn't curiosity, it was interrogation. Marcus swallowed hard. He had walked this block for years, but in that moment, it felt like foreign ground. His answer, simple, honest, caught in his throat. Before he could even respond, the man continued, his words sharp as glass. "You don't belong here." The phrase cut deeper than Marcus expected. Not belong? On a street just minutes from his own front door? The thought twisted inside him, but instinct told him to stay composed. He muttered a reply, something about heading home, about working late. But the men weren't listening. They had already decided what they saw. Not a man, not a neighbor, not someone with a life and a family, but a threat. The car door opened. Marcus's chest tightened. He could feel eyes from a nearby porch, but no one moved. No one spoke. The world shrank to the cold pavement beneath him and the looming presence of strangers who saw him as less than human. One man stepped closer, circling him like prey. "Funny how you people always end up in the wrong place," he said, almost like it was a joke. Marcus felt heat rise in his face, shame mixing with anger. Every instinct screamed at him to defend himself, to shout, to push back. But another instinct, older, heavier, warned him, "Don't." So he stayed still. His silence became its own prison. The men finally backed off, but not before delivering one last blow. A stare that lingered, a smirk that promised this wasn't over. Then, as suddenly as it began, they slipped back into their car, the engine growling as it pulled away. Marcus exhaled, realizing he'd been holding his breath. But relief never came. because even as the taillights faded into the distance, the question remained. Had this just been a warning, or the beginning of something far worse? Marcus tried to shake it off, but the unease clung to him like a shadow. Just 2 blocks from home, safety should have been near. Instead, the sound of tires screeching behind him froze his steps. The same car. They hadn't left after all. The doors slammed open. Heavy footsteps pounded the pavement, closing in fast. Marcus's pulse spiked. He turned, hands instinctively raised, not in surrender, but in a desperate plea. I'm not a threat. But it didn't matter. One man shoved him hard against a wall, the rough brick biting into his skin. The other barked accusations, words Marcus barely processed through the ringing in his ears. Suspicious. Up to no good. Doesn't belong. Each phrase landed like a blow, stripping away his dignity piece by piece. Neighbors' curtains twitched. A porch light flicked on. People were watching, but no one came. The silence of witnesses felt like betrayal, heavier than the grip pinning him down. Marcus's chest burned as fear and anger battled inside him. He wanted to scream that he was just trying to get home, to make them see his humanity. But deep down, he knew they didn't care. To them, he wasn't Marcus, the hard-working brother, the dependable friend. He was just another target, another body they could control, humiliate, or worse. The man pressed closer, voice low but venomous. One wrong move, and this ends badly for you. In that instant, Marcus realized how fragile his life was, balanced on the edge of someone else's judgment. No crime, no wrongdoing, yet his future hung in the space between breaths. And then, just as sudden as it began, the pressure lifted. The men stepped back, satisfied with their power. Smirks carved across their faces. They left him shaken, bruised, but alive. Marcus slid down the wall, trembling. Relief should have come, but instead, a darker thought took its place. How many others never make it past this moment? Marcus made it home that night, but he was not the same. The bruises on his arms would fade, but the weight in his chest remained. Every corner he passed, every shadow on the street now carried a question. Will it happen again? He had always believed home meant safety, but the truth revealed itself brutally clear. Safety was never guaranteed when the world saw him as a threat before a human being. In the days that followed, Marcus tried to return to normal, but normal no longer existed. He laughed less, spoke less, and carried the memory of that night like an invisible scar. Yet what haunted him most wasn't just what happened to him. It was knowing how easily it could have been worse. A single push, a misread movement, and his name might have been another hashtag, another headline, another life reduced to a statistic. Marcus's story is not unique. It echoes across neighborhoods, cities, and generations. It's the story whispered in fear by parents to their children. Be careful, come straight home, don't draw attention. It's the story too often dismissed until it's captured on camera. And the harsh truth? For every Marcus who makes it home, there are countless others who don't. So the question lingers, pressing on all of us. How many more stories like this need to be told before something changes? Because this isn't just his story, it's America's story, and whether it keeps repeating or finally ends depends on whether we choose to listen.